This video is for educational purposes only. Our group is allowing Mr. Roldan Martinez to use this as educational material. Good day everyone. We are from the group 4 and today we're going to discuss about the topics of semifinals week 3, the global demography, global migration, and global citizenship. Our learning objectives of this topic is to first identify the attributes of global city and analyze how cities serve as engines of globalization. 2 is to explain the theory of demographic transition as it affects global population. 3 is to analyze the political, economic, cultural, and social factors underlying global movements of people and display first-hand knowledge of the experiences of OFWs. And lastly, to articulate a personal definition of global citizenship and appreciate the ethical obligation of global citizenship. First, let's discuss global demography. Demography is derived from the Greek word demos, or people, and graphy means writing, description, or measure. Demography is the scientific study of human population that focuses on easily observable phenomena. Demography focuses its attention on 3 readily observable phenomena, namely change in population size, change the composition of the population, and the distribution of population in space. Change in population size. The change in the population from births and deaths is often combined and referred to as natural increase or natural change. Populations grow or shrink depending on how much faster or slower they gain people. If birth rate is greater than the death rate, then the population increases. If death rate is greater than the birth rate, then the population decreases. If death rate is equal to the birth rate, then the population is constant. In addition, migration is the determinant factor of population as it changes the demographic size and composition of both areas of departure and arrival. To sum it up, the population size change grow when the sum of natural increase and net migration is positive, but it declines when the sum is negative. Change the composition of population. The structure of the population is referred to as population composition. Demographic composition tells us how many people are male or females, what group they belong to, how educated they are, what occupations they work, how much money they make, and how healthy they are. Birth rate, mortality rate, and migration are all factors that influence population change. First, the number of births per 1,000 people is known as the birth rate, and the death is the number of people who die per 1,000. If the birth rate exceeds the death rate, the population grows. The distribution of population in space. The spatial pattern created by population dispersal, agglomeration formation, linear spread, and other factors is referred to as population distribution. The ratio of people to physical space is known as population density. It depicts the relationship between a population size and the size of the area they live in. There are 5 demographic processes which reflects global demography. First is fertility. Second is mortality. Third is marriage. Fourth is migration. And 5 is social. Fertility. When the fertility rate is at the replacement level, a population will remain stable, neither growing nor shrinking. Fertility rates above the replacement level will cause the population to grow. Fertility rates below the replacement level will cause the population to shrink. Mortality. It is the frequency of death in a population. The effect of mortality on population structure is to reduce the component of population in which mortality occurs. Marriage. Marriage is a social factor that causes change in population of a particular area. For example, if a woman is married to a foreigner, the population or region decreases whereas the population of her husband's country increases. Migration. Movement of people from one place to another is called migration. Migration causes change of population. As we migrate from one place to another, the population of one place decreases while the other place increases. It is considered as a unnatural element of population change. Social. It deals with the question of population composition change and how they interact with sociological variables at the individual and contextual level. Global migration. Migration is called when a person or group of people move and settle to a different place. It can be temporary or permanent. There are four types of migration, namely internal migration, international migration, immigration, and emigration. Internal migration is where they only migrate within the country. They can move to other towns or cities but not abroad. While international migration is outside the country. Immigration is existing from one country to another, while immigration means entering the country. Migration has advantages and disadvantages. There are some advantages in the country that they lack. These are remittances, decreased pressure on jobs, resources, and new skills. Moreover, these are the advantages to the country that they move in a richer and more diverse culture. Reduced labor shortage, and also, migrants are more prepared to take on low-paid and low-skilled jobs. The disadvantages in the country they left is that it reduces the size of the country's potential workforce and brain drain, or lack of professional workers such as doctors, lawyers, and nurses. Also, the country that they move in has higher increase of costs and services such as healthcare, education, overcrowding, religion, and cultural conflicts. Because of diversity, there could be racism. Migration has many challenges, such as brain drain. This means that professionals leave the country to seek better opportunities. Human trafficking is the exploitation of human labor. Conflicts between indigenous migrants. And lastly is the population pressure. Global citizenship. Global citizenship is a way of living that recognizes our world. It is an increasingly complex web of connections and interdependencies, one in which our choices and actions may have been repercussions for people and communities, locally, nationally, or internationally. Global citizenship helps people to see their morals as relative to their cultures and backgrounds, while driving people to reckon with their differences so they can work together to ensure a sustainable future for humanity. It is essential to the contemporary world in order to develop cultural awareness and empathy, preserve planet that all humans share, and to better prepare yourself to thrive in the increasingly global community. Let's say, for example, with today's ability to travel by air and water, people can buy things from all over the world. You may eat banana from the Philippines, or watch television that was made in China. Global citizens understand that everyone is connected through what they buy and sell. Theory of demographic transition as it affects global population. Theory of demographic transition is progress from pre-modern regime of high fertility and high mortality to a post-modern regime of low fertility and low mortality. It means that in the pre-modern regime, the fertility rates are high due to the lack of family planning and the cultural need for children. And mortality rates are high due to the poor sanitation, poor water quality, high rates of disease and high rates of famine. Therefore, both rates are high. The overall size of the population doesn't change much. However, on post-modern regime, it is characterized by low birth and low death rate, with the result that the population becomes stationary. Most industrialized countries have gone through a demographic transition from high birth and death rates to a low birth and death rates.
Demographic transition is a model of the changes in a country's population. It states that the population will eventually stop growing when the country transitions from high birth rates and high death rates to low birth rates and death rates, stabilizing the population. This stabilization often occurs in industrialized countries because less developed countries tend to rely on and follow the more developed countries for their advancements. Right now, most countries have a positive growth rate, which means their population keeps getting bigger. First, let's pin down what the growth rate is. Growth rate measures how much the population of a country grows or shrinks over some time period. So, for example, let's take a look at this country. I'm going to call it Z. Z here had 1 million people at the beginning of the year. If we want to know the growth rate of the population of Z for the year, we count how many people were added to the population and how many people were removed. The number of people added includes the number of births and the number of people who immigrated into the country during that year. Let's say 20,000 babies were born this year and 50,000 people moved to Z from other countries. Then, you have to subtract from this number how many people were removed from the population, so the number of deaths and the number of people who emigrated from the country during that year. Let's say during the year, 15,000 people died and 5,000 people moved out of Z. From here, it's pretty easy to figure out the population of Z at the end of the year. Start off with 1 million, add 20,000 births and 50,000 immigrants, and subtract 15,000 deaths and 5,000 emigrants, which gives us 1,050,000 people at the end of the year. If we want the growth rate over this year, all you need to do is take that total current population, subtract the total number of people in the country at the beginning of the year, and then divide by that number again. Multiply by 100 and you turn it into a percentage. Now, you have your growth rate. So now you can see why, when we say there's a positive growth rate, that means that the population is now bigger than the population in the past. But why do most countries currently have a positive growth rate? There are economic benefits because children can work to help support the family, and sometimes the government even provides incentives to families for each child, like in Japan, where birth rates are very low. Religion also influences population growth because it often promotes large families, which increase the number of people in their faith and encourage a stronger community. Some religions will even forbid the use of contraceptives by their followers, pretty much ensuring large families. And there are cultural influences that promote large families too. Having children means that a person is passing down their own family's traits and values, and there's a kind of prestige that goes along with having children.
Good day, sir. I am Engine Cadet Mallorca, and I am here about to report the political and economic factors underlying the global movement of people and display first-hand knowledge of experience of OFWs. First, we tackle about political factors. There are 4 political factors. The state persecution. It involves the harassment, discrimination, and torture of people who disagree with their government, have monetary, religious belief, and ethnic background. So because of this condition, in their country are unsafe. These people are forced to migrate to safer countries. Next is lack of political liberties. The lack of political liberties and rights and endemic corruption as a push factor of migrants seeking greater shelter. So this triggers migration for political or economic. Most migrants live for democratic countries where they can pursue better careers and education and freedom. War. According to National Geographic Earth polls, there are approximately 42 million people worldwide who have been forced to immigrate due to war. So war and armed conflicts have diverse causes by all these factors are influence and political issues. Lastly is cultural political. Political instability caused by cultural diversity cause our people certain cultural affiliation to move within the country or away from their country altogether. So this means the governments can also force cultural groups to move from one place to another to gain political advantages and having less cultural than diversity. Next is economic factors. Most of the studies indicate that migration is primarily motivated by economic factors. In developing countries, low agricultural income, agricultural unemployment, and underdeveloped or underemployment are considered basic factors pushing the migrant towards developed area with their greater job opportunities. So there are two factors of these economic factors. So the first factor is the push factors that are compel a person due to different reasons to leave the place and go to some other places or place. So the common push factors are lowly productivity, unemployment, and underdevelopment. Poor economic conditions, lack of opportunities for advancement, exhaustion of natural resources, and natural calamities. So these are the factors for push factors. So the next factor is the pull factors, which attract the immigrants to an area, so they can attract people to come into their area or to migrate in this place. So the opportunities for better employment, high wages, facilities, better working conditions, and attractive amenities are pull factors in or of an area. Lastly is display first-hand knowledge of the experience of OFWs. So first is OFWs remit to their families if they are or they have one. A portion of their earnings from their occupations abroad which tend to be higher than what they would receive a compensation for the same position here. For instance, the nurses earned at least 100,000 pesos in Japan versus around 200,000 pesos or whereabouts here in the Philippines. That means family whose breadwinners are abroad have, after receiving remittance from them, have much higher disposable incomes, which means they are able to buy more goods and services than those who work here instead. More money is pumped into the economy, so that's why people are going abroad, and that's what we call the overseas Filipino workers, and that is their experience to go abroad to have bigger income to give their family better experiences or better jobs and better life. Thank you, sir.
So, good day everyone. I am here to continue the report of Region Cadet Mallorca. So, cultural and social factors underlying the global movements of people and display first-hand knowledge of the experience of OFWs. So, overseas Filipino workers or OFWs are considered as our modern-day heroes. So, they are considered as a hero in our country because they not only contribute to our country's economic growth through remittances, but they also sacrifice by the chance of having near their family and they are away and they choose to work overseas to be able to provide for their loved ones regardless of the risk they will have to face in a foreign land. So some OFWs go all I rather mostly OFWs go in different places because of their families so that they can give them a better life or they can finance them. So cultural factors of homesickness. So first is homesickness. We all know that OFWs is far from their home and they miss their home and their families, so they experience homesickness. And second is communication gap and cultural differences. So of course you go to another place, different ways of communicating, different languages like English, Filipino, Chinese, like that, and cultural differences. And we all know that all of us have different culture, and you as an OFW you need to adapt and you need to adjust for them. And fashion, yes, fashion because of the weather in other countries such as USA that there is a cold weather, except cold weather, and not like here in the Philippines that we are tropical, we experience hot and we don't experience cold weather here. Unlike USA, they experience winter, so that we need to adapt the way of their fashion there in the United States. So this I interviewed one of my friend in high school that is an OFW. So this is what he said. So I conducted an interview with my high school friend that is not now staying in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland is in Canada. He has a lot of experience as an OFW or overseas Filipino worker. He said that his first week in Canada was so hard for him. He had no friend, no knowledge on what are the culture, the way of living, and the attitude of the people in that place. But he said that you just need to adjust and adapt on the culture, and you should be nice to foreign people because they will be nice to you as well. So that's how he coped up with the cultural and social factors of an overseas Filipino worker. So social factors. Although economic effects of migration have been extensively studied, the social effects have received less attention. However, they are very important and very closely linked to the much more studied economic effects. So social and economic effects are linked, and they are just similar. The social effects of migration, among others, consist of change in family composition, family separations, and the abandonment of old people. So of course, if you are an OFW, you are away from your homeland and your friends, your family, and child outcomes in terms of labor, health, and education. So social factors, health. So of course, you are in USA and it is cold there, and your body is not wala na anad sa weather sa USA, so you may experience some health or medical problems if you're there. And financial, and of course financial it is also a factors because expenses there in other countries are too expensive. And social supports, you are away from your circle of friends, your family, so you don't have enough social supports if you are an OFW. And lastly, the tension between certain groups like kasuyaan, you need to adapt also, and you respect them, and you need to understand other certain groups in other countries. And that's all, and I have a video presentation.
In the previous video, migration was explained. But why do people migrate? One of the most well-known explanations for migration is the model of push and pull factors explained in this video. In the push and pull factors model, both the origin and destination region have positive and negative characteristics. We indicate the positive characteristics with plus signs and are called pull factors. Because they are positive, you are, as it were, pulled into certain regions. Examples of pull factors are, for example, a well-paid job, living in a democracy, and freedom. On the other hand, there are push factors that we show as minuses. These are negative characteristics of a region that push you away, as it were. These are reasons to leave an area. War, poverty, and famine are examples of push factors. The push and pull factors are added up, and regions with many pluses seem attractive as migration destinations. If there are a lot of push factors, then there are a lot of minuses and the area is unattractive. Now suppose you live in an area that is unattractive, for example because of poverty or war. In that case, another area may be attractive because it is safe or because work can be found there. In that case, migration takes place if there are no intervening obstacles. Obstacles are barriers between the origin and the destination country. This can be natural obstacles, such as a mountain range, desert, or a sea, or for example human-made obstacles such as strict border controls and building walls on the border. We can divide the push and pull factors into four perspectives. The first perspective are economic factors. They have to do with money. Economic pull factors can be, for example, wealth or high incomes, while economic push factors can be poverty and high taxes. The second perspective are political factors. They are about safety and the organization of politics. Political pull factors are, for example, a free and safe democracy. Political push factors are, for example, war, corruption, or discriminations on the basis of religion, origin, or sexual orientation. For refugees, the political push factors are the most important factors to flee their country of origin. The third perspective are social factors. Social pull factors are the presence of family and friends, while social push factors can be tensions between certain groups. The fourth and last perspective are environmental factors. A clean or beautiful environment without natural disasters can be pull factors. Drought and floodings are push factors. Climate change is also one of the push factors in this group if the effect of climate change on an area is negative, for example because there are more droughts or because of the danger of sea level rise. However, research shows that there is no link between climate change and migration yet. In the following video, criticism of the push and pull factor model is discussed and other theories that explain migrations are explained.
Good day, I am Engine Cadet Lahut. What is global citizenship? So first, I'll define the meaning of global citizenship. Global citizenship means an awareness of the interconnectedness among people and societies and environment around the globe. It emphasizes responsibilities and contribution to a global society and economy. So when students develop a sense of global citizenship, they learn to respect seminal universal values such as peace, sustainability, and upholding the human rights and dignity of all people. So for me, global citizenship is all about encouraging the people to develop their skills, knowledge, and values they need to engage with the world, and it is also kanang believe that the people or the global citizenship can make a difference. So global citizenship helps people to build their own understanding of the world events. People can understand of what's happening around the world and think about their values and what's important to them. Then also they can take learning into the world, and it challenges their ignorance and tolerance, and people can get involved in their local, global, and national communities, and it also develops their opinions and develop their arguments. A global citizen living in an emerging world community has ethical obligation and economic responsibilities. So these responsibilities include, first, the responsibility to understand one's own perspective and the perspective of others on global issues. So a global citizen has the responsibility to understand different perspectives, and a global citizen should avoid taking sides on which a particular point of view, instead of finding ways to bring all sides to understand each other on their perspective. Second is the responsibility to respect the principle of cultural diversity. So as a global citizen, it is the responsibility to respect the world's different cultural traditions, and also make effort to bring together the different cultural traditions and have cultures to solve global issues and building world community. Third is the responsibility to make connections and build relationships with people from other countries and cultures. So as a global citizen, it is important to reach out and build kanang relationships with people to other countries and cultures, and kanang it is important to help those kanang people to involve better understanding on the kanang similarities and differences for kanang to solve common global issues that every people faces. Fourth is responsibility to understand the ways in which people and countries of the world are interconnected and interdependent. So as a global citizen, kanang it is the responsibility to understand kanang many ways in which kanang their lives have interconnected with people and also countries in different parts of the world. So kanang global citizen need to understand the ways in which global environment affects them where they live, and kanang how the environment lifestyle they choose affect the environment in any other parts. Fifth, global responsibility to understand global issues. So as a global citizen, it is the responsibility to understand major global issues that affects their lives. It's important to understand the impact of kanang resources of the societies. Also kanang find the root of the conflict by the growing global population. 6 is the responsibility to advocate for greater international cooperation with other nations. So as a global citizen, it is the responsibility to cooperate between their nations and others when facing global issues or global issues arises. It is important for kanang global citizen to advise on how their countries can work and other nations to kanang help address the issues. So 7th is the responsibility for advocating the implementation of international agreements, conventions, treaties, and global issues. So as a global citizen, it is also the responsibility to advocate for having their countries ratify, implements, and global agreements, conventions, treaties that they have signed. And lastly, responsibility for advocating for more effective global equity and justice in each domains of the world community. So as a global citizen, it is the responsibility to have to work with one another and advocate global equity and justice solutions to the issues of the world.
Welcome to Introduction to Global Citizenship. Do you think of yourself as a global citizen? Who is a global citizen? And what is global citizenship? Some people say that global citizenship doesn't exist because there's no such thing as a global passport. Others say,
Good day, I'm Engine Cadet Sabiliano and I'm from Group 4, and I'm learning about the global migration in contemporary world. So first, what is global migration? Global migration is an act of moving from one place to another. Global migration is the movement of a person or a group of person from one place to another with a purpose of relocating their residence or residency either temporarily or permanently. Migration is important for the transfer of manpower and skills and provides the needed knowledge and innovation for global growth. In order to address the issues raised by global migration, it is necessarily to improve international coordination. Global migration in globalization is one of the most visible and significant aspects of globalization. Growing number of people move within countries and across borders, looking for better employment opportunities and better lifestyle. Although migration is usually as problematic, it contributes to sustainable development. There are two types of migration, the internal migration and the international migration. So, when migration takes place from one to another within the country, it is called internal migration. So, for example, a person that live in Cebu City traveling to other places like Bohol or from Cebu City to Manila, that is only called internal migration. So next, international migration, it is the movement of person happens towards another country. So, for example, Filipino people that work to abroad like Saudi or Dubai, so that is called international migration. Then the question is, why do people move? These are the push backyard that considered to the causes why people migrate, or people migrate as thinking about the safety, economic betterment, or in education, family, and also career. Some people move in search of work or economic opportunities, to join a family, or to study. Others move to escape conflict, persecution, terrorism, or human rights violation. Still, others move in response to the adverse effect of climate change, natural disasters, or other environmental factors. For additional example, let's watch this video.
You can think of it like this. You are no longer having time with your family, and seems your relationship to them are already toxic. You work so much in a company but giving you a low salary. In addition to that, you have a terror boss that shouts and points out on everything that you do in your workplace. In this kind of situation, your career, social communication, environment, family, peers, even your economic status is affected. And this is the thinking, I have to move to another place to make a better career, better boss, better salary for home, and better environment. So people mostly perceive that when they migrate to another country, they will have a better environment for their family, friends, better career, salary, and a better boss. And this what pulls people to move to another country. People are attracted to move towards a city or a country because of social, political, economic, or environmental matters. There are so many circumstances that may arise which may attract or force you to leave, but always keep in mind that you move for your own betterment.
Once again, I'm Engine Cadet Sabiliano. That's all. Thank you.
Good day. I'm Engine Cadet Rayusa Rinudi, and I will talk about the 4 types of global migration. migration processes are not homogeneous, and different kinds of migration must be considered in the study of this phenomenon, especially when linking migration to land use change. As noted above in the explanation of the model, people migrate for a range of different reasons, but over the latter half of the 20th century, it became possible to identify three main types of international migration: labor and temporary migrations, including illegal migration, forced migration, and international retirement migration. There is also internal migration, most commonly from rural areas to urban centers, but also a trend in some places for counter-urbanization. The first one is labor migration. Labor migration represents the movement of individuals from one country to another with the purpose of seeking work or responding to recruitment drives in another country. However, in labor migration, it is possible to identify two types of migrants. First is highly skilled labor and unskilled low-wage labor. So, high-skilled labor migration, it is a type of migration most demanded by the host countries who develop special types of incentives to attract highly skilled labor, often in specific categories such as doctors and nurses. However, the loss of skilled labor, a phenomenon known as the brain drain, can have severe consequences for the sending countries, which lose human capital and all the money invested in the education and training of the people who live. Nevertheless, it can be seen as an attractive solution for solving problems of labor shortage and a way to increase economic production. Second is unskilled low-wage labor and temporary migration. Unskilled low-wage labor was the main type of migration, which played a very important role in the economic reconstructions of the industrialized countries. The second migration is forced migration. Forced migration includes not only refugees and asylum seekers fleeing war or political repression, but also people displaced from their homes by projects such as dams or roads, or as a result of certain natural disasters. Has also referred to another mode of forced migration, the trafficking of people, with special emphasis on women and children destined for the sex industry. The third migration is International Retirement Migration, or IRM. International migration is the movement of people across international borders for the purpose of settlement. International migrants change their usual place of residence from one country to another. International retirement migration is a phenomenon of the northern countries such as Germany, the UK, and the Nordic countries, characterized by the residential mobility of retired people who have the economic power to buy properties abroad. Lastly, internal migration. Internal migration is the movement of people between usual residences within national states. This article starts with a description of the levels of residential mobility and degrees of interregional migration in industrialized countries. This type of migrations occurs inside in the particular country and between regions, especially from economically poor areas and rural parts to major cities.
I'm Engine Cadet J. Lord Bulilan, and my assigned topic is why there is global migration. So migration is often driven by the search for better livelihoods and new opportunities. Indeed, global and regional social and economic inequalities are expressed most powerfully through the figure of the migrant, as one who crosses borders in search of work, education, and new horizons. So, people may choose to immigrate for a variety of reasons, such as employment, opportunities, to escape a violent conflict, environmental factors, educational purposes, or to reunite with family. So, what are the benefits of global migration? So, through employment abroad, migrants can increase their income, acquire new skills, and accumulate savings and assets. When migrants return, they transfer both the financial and human capital accumulated abroad. So, global migrate is moving from one place to another. It is protected human right. Human beings have always moved from one place to another. The freedom to move is so precious that it is a protected human right. Immigration is when a person freely chooses to move to another place.
So, good day. I am Engine Cadet Bas Januel, and I'm going to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of sending and receiving countries. So first, I'm going to discuss the receiving country. First, advantages is richer and more diverse culture. So it will adversely affect economic development, and helps the country's economic growth because of bringing people together from a diverse set of backgrounds and cultures. So the disadvantages is an increasing cost of services such as healthcare and education. Because of the demand, and also the government policy will trigger that this country will force to increase the cost of services. Next advantage is helps to reduce any labor shortages. So because some migrants are going abroad to find job, and it will benefit the country because of the improvement of recruiting process. In return, it will cause of overcrowding because some immigrants did not find a decent job, and maybe because they lack of skills and talent that needed for the company. The next advantage is migrants are more preferred to take on low-paid, low-skilled jobs. So in this case, immigrants lack the skills needed to obtain higher-paying jobs. That's why they are forced to take the job with the low salary, and it will benefit the company or the country. Then the disadvantages, the disadvantage is the disagreements between different religions and cultures. So next is the sending country. So first advantage is money sent home by migrants. So they send a large amount of money for their family, but in return, people of working age move out, reducing the size of the country's potential workforce. So this is one of the disadvantages. So because some of the professional workers in their country are lost, and it will affect the economy of the country. Next advantage is the decreases pressure on jobs and resources. Some of migrants are not pressure in their jobs because some countries has a lot of equipment to be used and resources. The disadvantages is the gender imbalances are caused as it is typically men who seek to find employment elsewhere. Women and children are left because they lack of skill, and men also are strong. Next advantage is migrants may return with new skills. So with experience to the past jobs, migrants more or likely are good in terms of job status. So the disadvantages is brain drain if many skilled workers leave. It means the unskilled workers are remain, and it will affect the economy of that country. It can be stopped, or there is a development but in a slow progress. In addition, there are a number of obstacles that the immigrant may need to overcome, including unemployment in new country, racism and cultural differences, language barriers, and lastly is lack of opportunities. And that's all for my topic. Thank you. And I will show you the video of the advantages and disadvantages of sending and receiving countries.
After immigrating to another country, most migrants search for a job. Migrants often do unskilled jobs for a very low salary. Skilled migrants are also very happy to offer their services for a low price. Most migrants are highly qualified. Their skills and knowledge can contribute to the well-being of the destination country. Immigrants help provide diversity in many countries, which can help people to better appreciate human rights in general and stop racism and discrimination. A multi-ethnic society can also help increase people's understanding of other cultures and ways of life. Local people often lose their jobs to immigrants. This might be because the migrants are more skilled than the local workers, or it is simply because the incoming workers are cheaper to employ. Immigrants might face discrimination and racism against their ethnic group. Many migrants won't speak the local language or will behave differently to the locals and therefore will feel excluded from the communities. Increased numbers of people can add pressure on resources such as health, education, and other facilities. Prices of these services will therefore increase. Certain aspects of cultures and traditions might be modified or lost as people are exposed to other ways of doing things. There is a risk of contagious disease outbreak because people are moving from place to place. Money sent home by migrants can be used to finance improved education and health facilities and will also help the home country's economy grow. People are more likely to get jobs in the home country once the youth emigrates, as there is less pressure for jobs. Returning migrants bring home new ideas, skills and knowledge which can be used to start businesses, farm practices or other economic ventures. The loss of skilled and professional labour to other countries may slow economic development in the home country. When migrants leave their home country, businesses receive a decrease in demand for some goods and services. Children whose parents leave the country lose out on the psychological development they need from good parenting. Instead, they are often exposed to immoral behaviour.